Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Wednesday, June 25th. So, what are we going to talk about today? I thought maybe we would go into diagnosing stuff because that's probably the most important thing that you can do, right? Is to diagnose something and then fix it correctly. But diagnosing always comes first. So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Wednesday, the 25th of 2025. So what are we talking about today? You see so many videos on fixing stuff, right? But the part that you don't get to see too often is the most important part, and that is diagnosing what is actually going on, right? And a lot of people have a lot of different ways of deciding of how to diagnose something. For many of your older mechanics that are out there, you guys, you've been doing it long enough. So good chances are you've seen something similar or have it happen before, so you're going by memory, of what it ended up being and what the fix was. But what I can tell you, even with old mechanics that go by memory, sometimes it can throw you a curveball. So the first thing is never assume. Makes an ass out of you and me, right? But you never assume anything when you're in the diagnostic mode. You're just trying to find little bits and pieces that will help kind of put the puzzle together. What took place? How did it take place? Why did it take place? You're the investigator trying to figure out what took place before it failed, right? And a thunking in the deck on a lawnmower could be as simple as the customer hit a metal pipe or a tree stump in the yard and they bent a blade, causing it to ting, right? So we could simply say, okay, it's a bent blade, put a new blade on it. But if we look at the blade and the blade looks all right, now what? Again, keep an open mind and don't assume anything. I think of when a customer tells me that the blade is making a tunking noise, it's either the blade, could be the spindle, could be loose, it could be that it's got a hairline fracture in it, and as you crank it up, it pulls apart and allows it to. But that's why I say you got to listen to the customer, but the customer is not always right, right? When they bring their stuff into you. So you have to keep an open mind and first listen to what it's doing. One of you said, did I put a video out on how to install a stator on a John Deere rider, because every time you hook the negative up, it starts to engage the starter. All your stator does is it's a charging system. It recharges the battery. It doesn't have anything to do with starting, per se. So if you're sitting there focusing on the stator, a two-wire stator, and trying to figure out why it's causing the machine now to start when you hook up the negative, then you got to take a deeper look into this. There's something not right in that system, all right? And in order to get at the stator, you have to take the flywheel off, right? And there lays the stator on top. That's your charging system. And then you have a pickup on that where it picks up the impulse from the stator and puts voltage back through the voltage regulator to the battery, okay? Even if you unplug those stator wires it's not going to affect how the battery and the switch reacts. If you unplug the wires coming out of the stator and you hook up the negative, good chances are you're going to have that same issue. And I have seen it in the past to where a switch has gone bad, a solenoid is acting up, has nothing to do with the stator, but that's something that you just did, and it's affecting the whole system. So the bigger question is, what did you do up until that point to get the stator off? What wires did you unplug and replug back in? Are you plugging in something that into the wrong wire? Makes sense? The stator is not going to automatically have that engine trying to start when you put the negative post on. It's not. It actually doesn't do anything until you actually energize it by having the engine running so that it can send a charge back through the regulator to the battery. The battery is a standalone dish, alright? So somewhere you have unplugged wires that didn't need to be unplugged, and now you've got them plugged in the wrong way, if that sounds reasonable. It's one of the reasons why even a seasoned mechanic, we do it here at the shop, and that is everybody's got a cell phone, right? So before you go tearing everything apart, what I like to do is take a couple pictures of where the wires are plugged in, how the belts are run, stuff like that. See, we've got a video coming up. We've got a Troy-built rototiller, rear tine, and the engine is just wore out. We're fighting it, and between us and the owner, we decided to go with a brand new 6.5 Predator engine. And we're going to be doing a video on that this week. Here's the clinker. Is even though we've done this numerous times, I still take a picture of how the belts are set up and how they look and how they're supposed to be run. Because we have, in the past, actually put the belts on wrong because we didn't understand it. And like with the tiller, the front belt, it looks like it's on wrong because it's coming around the upper pulley and the bottom pulley like it's flipped over. But that's the correct way, because the way it's set up is when you go to engage it, the drive to move it, the V pulley pushes in and becomes part of that system. And when you back it off, it stops. But you have a flat pulley on top and bottom to make it correct. But to look at it, you would think it was wrong. So you want to flip it over. But if you took a picture of it before you started, you say, okay, yeah, that's the way it was run. That's the way it was originally came. That's the way it should be. Now, if it was wrong and somebody had changed it on you and you take a picture and you put it back on wrong, yes, that could happen. But I'm talking about ones that you know that the customer has not had their hands in or know of their hands in. But it just kind of gives you an idea of how the wiring should be. And the other thing I use the pictures for is if I know a customer's been in it, I take a picture of it the way it is. And then once Claude gets it fixed, or I get it fixed, and the wiring is set up correctly, I take a picture. So when they show up, I show them the picture and say, this is what you had, and this is what it needs to be. And have it be a teachable moment. See, being a mechanic isn't all, like a magician where it's all smoke and sometimes you're going to have customers that are half-assed. That's the easiest way I can put it. Half-assed is they know just enough to get themselves into trouble. But if you can show them a lot of times where they went wrong and say it's happened before. You're not the first. And a lot of times I say, look, it's happened to me before, even if it hasn't, because I don't want the customer feeling like an ass, right? So you show them the two pictures, the before and the after, to show them where they went wrong. As simple as that. So don't be afraid to use your phone to do it before you start tearing things apart, and go back to it when you go to put things back together to see where the wires are supposed to be connected. Because I can tell you on 10 different machines, it could be 10 different looks. So if you're going to be replacing the stator on a lawnmower, take a picture of the wires that are coming out of the stator and anywhere around that area that you're going to be working, okay? To see what it's supposed to be looking like. And when you pull the flywheel off, take a picture of the stator in place, the old one, to see how it sits and the way it goes together. See, what I find a lot of times is, in that case of a stator, it's not the stator that's the issue, it's the regulator on the outside that's controlling the voltage regulator. They do go bad. The stators also go bad at times, but a lot of times if you you can get it right at Harbor Freight. It's just a battery tester. It's got the two leads off from it with a handle. Put it on when it's not running, and it should read 12 to 13 on a good battery. Start it up, and then give it some gas. Rev it up, and when you rev it up, that voltage regulator, that the meter on that unit should go up almost to 14. And then once the battery's fully charged, it'll start coming back down to 12, right? That's going to tell you whether your charging system is working. If you're constantly charging the battery because it keeps going dead after using it, it's not always the regulator or the stator that's the issue. It could very well be you've got a bad battery. And see, the big thing is when it comes to a charging system, and I'll take my John Deere mower for instance. Okay, on that charging system, it's got the stator, it's got the voltage regulator, but it's also got a fuse, an inline fuse for the charging system. That if anything gets out of whack, that fuse will go. And what ends up happening is it'll start and drive until it finally, it won't allow it to charge, so it'll run just long enough for that battery trying to run the PTO, the electric PTO clutch, until it finally runs out of battery, and then it quits. It'll stall. And if you let it sit for a minute, a lot of times it'll start back up, but then it stalls again. Well, you could blame the battery, but in that case, it was just a simple 30 amp fuse in the fuse panel, and it didn't have anything to do with the stator, voltage regulator, battery. It was the fuse in line that had blown. And I seen those blown if you crank it too much. So you should never crank and crank and crank and crank when you're trying to start something. Turn it over 8 or 10 times and then stop. Because you don't want to burn up the starter. You don't want to burn up the switch. There's just so many things that can go wrong. Because what's happening is heat is building up inside that. So everything gets warmer and warmer. And I've actually seen customers that would melt wires together of where the whip got so hot of them cranking on something. But being able to diagnose something is one of the most important aspects of a mechanic that you need to learn. And you're like, well, how do I learn that? Well, it's from time. Time looking at things, trying to figure out in your mind what is wrong with it. And then as you're working through the process, you're eliminating, right? And that's the key to a good mechanic, is you're eliminating things first. We can take that charging system as an example. And then we'll do the charging system, all right? So if it's not charging, so what do we want to do? We want to eliminate and see what's going on with it. So if we start the lawnmower up and put it half, 3/4, full throttle, and we have the meter on it, and it's reading over 13 volts that is being put back into that battery, we can eliminate pretty much the stator, the voltage regulator, the pickup. You can eliminate a lot of things. But in saying so, you have to look at all things that are playing their part in that system and what are in that system when you think of having an issue with either the battery not staying charged, anything to do with the charging system. You've got the battery, you've got the wiring, you've got the pickup, you've got the stator, and you got the voltage regulator. Each one of them play a unique part in that whole thing, right? And then don't forget your inline fuse or in the fuse box for your charging system. John Deere, there's a number of the other ones out there that are more commercial that do have those in it. But you can eliminate all of them just by spending less than $20 at Harbor Freight, picking up that unit, and we use it all the time. And we use it from everything from a lawnmower to a garden or a farm tractor. We do a lot of 6 to 12 volt conversions, which is basically, to short form it, is we put in a 12 volt one wire GM alternator, and we eliminate the generator. We eliminate everything for the 6 volt system and put 12 in. And you don't have to change the distributor. You do have to change the coil from a 6 to a 12 volt, right? But when we get all said and done, what we want is everything working correctly, but the key is charging. You have to change the battery from a 6 to a 12 as well, guys. But you put the 12 volt battery in there and you start it up, and we look, and if it's putting out 14 and a half, we know that the system is working the way it's supposed to. Now, when you take a lawnmower and you have electric PTO clutch on it, I've seen where it's putting out, but it's not putting out enough because the electric PTO is breaking down. It's harder for it to turn. It's getting hotter, and it's causing friction. And with that, it's pulling more juice to try to keep going, right? So if you've eliminated the charging system on it and the fuses and all that, it may be simply when you pop that PTO to engage it, and you're looking at that meter, if that meter all of a sudden starts going way down, it's pointing towards a faulty PTO clutch, right? Or if it's not allowing it to come up when you're trying to run it, if you unplug the PTO clutch from being able to be part of the system, does it automatically go right up to 13 and a half or 14? If you did that, now we've localized the PTO clutch as being the culprit. Now we need to figure out why it's the culprit. And a lot of times it's just over wear and tear, they finally melt. It happens. And you can buy, an aftermarket on eBay for less than $100 now. I can remember when they used to be really expensive, and they were running $400 to $500 for a PTO clutch, and now squat. But I'm going to start wrapping this up. But chime in the comments and stuff. How do you approach things when you're diagnosing things? Because I think diagnosing something is just as important, if not more, than fixing something. because you're troubleshooting to see what is not affected. That's the way we do it, anyways. Our approach is we look at, okay, eliminate, eliminate, eliminate until you get down to what's left. That's usually the culprit. A seasoned mechanic, Travis, Jason, you guys have been doing it for years. A lot of times, if you've seen it before, it's aha, yep, that's what it is. But I've also seen Claude out there do his aha because it was doing a certain thing and assume and not even be remotely close to what he thought it was after spending a lot of time trying to figure out because he thought he knew what was the issue. And I've done that myself as well. So on that note, you guys have a great Wednesday. We'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning for another episode of the weekday. You guys enjoy today.